Are you absolutely certain that the life you are living right now is the life your deepest self intended? Or are you merely surviving inside a story that was written by fear, habit, and silent compromise? Because if you are honest enough to listen, there is a quiet voice inside you that has always known there is more, not more money, not more status, not more applause, but more command over your own mind, more authority over your own destiny, more mastery over the invisible forces that shape every result you experience. And that voice has been whispering to you since the day you realized that effort alone does not create wealth, that struggle alone does not create power, and that wishing alone does not bend reality. Because what truly determines your life is not what happens to you, but what you believe, what you feel, and what you consistently command yourself to become. Most people move through their days like prisoners who were never told the doors are unlocked, repeating routines, reacting emotionally, chasing approval, fearing loss, and wondering why the world seems to reward others with ease while they grind themselves into exhaustion. And the tragedy is not that they lack intelligence or opportunity. The tragedy is that they have never been taught the law that governs both success and peace, the law that Napoleon Hill wrote about in his quiet rooms of study, and the same law the Stoics discovered while sitting in the ruins of collapsing empires, the law that says the mind is the first and final battlefield, and whoever controls it controls everything. There is a reason you can place two people in the same city, in the same economy, with the same education, and one will build an empire while the other will barely survive, and it is not luck, and it is not privilege, and it is not even talent. It is inner alignment, it is psychological discipline. It is the ability to hold a clear vision in the imagination without being emotionally disturbed by temporary conditions. And that ability is what the ancient Stoics called inner sovereignty, and what Napoleon Hill called definiteness of purpose. Two languages describing the same invisible force. The most powerful wealth lesson you have never heard is not about investing or hustling or scaling or working harder. It is about learning how to govern the inner kingdom so completely that no external chaos can steal your focus, no emotional storm can hijack your decisions, and no temporary setback can poison your faith, because the mind that is ruled by impulse will always be ruled by circumstance. But the mind that is ruled by intention becomes a magnet for outcomes that look like miracles to everyone else. When Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal that you have power over your mind, not outside events, he was not giving you a motivational quote. He was revealing a wealth code. Because if your emotional state depends on the market, on people, on opinions, on approval, on comfort, then your wealth will always be fragile. But when your emotional state is governed by reason, purpose, and inner discipline, you become psychologically invincible, and psychologically invincible people inevitably become financially unstoppable because they are not distracted by fear, they are not paralyzed by doubt, and they do not abandon their vision when resistance appears. Napoleon Hill discovered this same truth after studying hundreds of the wealthiest men of his era. Men who had built fortunes from nothing, men who faced ridicule, bankruptcy, and humiliation, and yet continued forward with almost unnatural persistence. And what he found was not superior intelligence or better ideas, but a deep emotional commitment to a clear vision, a burning desire that was not shaken by failure, and a subconscious mind that had been trained to expect success rather than fear it. This is where Stoic law and Hill's success philosophy merge into something far more powerful than either alone, because desire without emotional discipline becomes obsession, anxiety, and desperation. But desire guided by Stoic calm becomes focused, patient, and unstoppable, and emotional control without vision becomes passive acceptance, but emotional control guided by a powerful aim becomes strategic resilience. And when these two forces unite inside you, you become someone who can want greatly without suffering, who can pursue fiercely without losing peace, who can build wealth without being enslaved by it. Most people believe wealth is something you chase, but the ancient truth is that wealth is something you align with. And alignment happens when your conscious goals, your subconscious beliefs, and your emotional habits are all moving in the same direction. And this is why so many people work hard and still remain poor, because their conscious desire wants success, but their subconscious fear expects failure, and their emotional habits sabotage consistency. So they pull themselves apart from the inside. You see this everywhere. The person who starts strong but quits when it gets uncomfortable. The entrepreneur who makes money and then loses it. The dreamer who never takes decisive action. And the cause is always the same, inner division. The Stoics would say they are enslaved by their passions. Napoleon Hill would say their subconscious is not impressed with faith. And both would be right, because until your mind is trained to remain steady in the face of uncertainty, it will always default to safety instead of growth. There is a brutal truth that most people never confront, which is that they are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of becoming someone new. Because to become wealthy in the deepest sense of the word requires a psychological death, the death of your old identity, your old emotional reactions, your old excuses, and your old limits, and the ego fights this with everything it has, whispering that you should wait, that you should be realistic, that you should not risk discomfort, and most people obey those whispers and call it wisdom. But the Stoics taught that the only true good is character, and the only true evil is weakness of the soul. And Napoleon Hill taught that the only real limitation is the one you accept in your own mind. And when you place these two teachings together, you begin to see that wealth is not primarily a financial journey. It is a psychological and spiritual discipline, a process of training yourself to think, feel, and act in alignment with a higher version of yourself long before the external world confirms it. Imagine what it means to hold a vision of your future so clearly that no criticism can blur it, to desire suck so intensely that no setback can extinguish it, and to maintain emotional calm so completely that no delay can disturb it. This is not fantasy. This is the exact inner state that every great builder of fortune has lived in, whether they knew the words to describe it or not. And this is why their presence feels different, why their decisions seem effortless, why they do not beg reality to change. They command themselves to rise. The mind is not a passive observer of reality. It is an active architect, shaping what you notice, what you believe, and how you respond. And what you consistently focus on becomes what you experience, not by magic, but by the quiet, relentless law of psychological causation. And when Napoleon Hill spoke about the subconscious mind being the connecting link between thought and reality, he was pointing to this exact mechanism. And when the Stoics spoke about impressions shaping the soul, they were describing the same invisible process. If you allow fear to dominate your inner dialogue, you will unconsciously seek safety. If you allow doubt to dominate your imagination, you will unconsciously avoid risk. If you allow anger or envy to dominate your emotions, you will unconsciously sabotage relationships. And all of this will appear on the surface as bad luck. But in truth, it is simply the mind expressing its conditioning through your life. And until you take conscious control of that conditioning, wealth will always remain something that happens to other people. The most powerful wealth lesson you have never heard is that your financial ceiling is not determined by the economy, by your background, or by your connections. It is determined by the emotional patterns you allow to live inside you. Because every level of income requires a corresponding level of psychological stability. And if your nervous system is trained to panic, to overreact, to quit, to seek comfort, you will unconsciously retreat whenever you approach the edge of your potential. This is why the Stoics trained themselves to endure discomfort, to contemplate loss, to face hardship with calm, because they understood that a person who is emotionally unshakable cannot be controlled by circumstances. And Napoleon Hill taught the same thing in a different language when he spoke about persistence, about faith, about holding a definite purpose, even when there is no evidence that it will succeed, because both philosophies are really about one thing: building a mind that does not collapse under pressure. When you begin to master this, something extraordinary happens. You stop begging the world for permission. You stop reacting to every opinion. You stop being emotionally drained by delays and obstacles. and instead you move forward with a quiet, relentless certainty. And this is what makes people seem lucky, because while others are panicking, they are preparing. While others are complaining, they are building. While others are waiting, they are acting from a place of inner alignment. There is a sacred stillness that lives at the center of all true power, a place inside you where fear cannot reach and doubt cannot survive. And the Stoics called this your ruling faculty, and Napoleon Hill would call this your dominant thought, and whatever lives there becomes the blueprint of your life. So if chaos lives there, chaos will follow you. If clarity lives there, clarity will guide you. If purpose lives there, purpose will shape every decision you make. Most people let the world write their inner script, the news, the family, the culture, the past, the failures, all whispering what is possible and what is not. And without realizing it, they begin to act in accordance with those whispers. But the rare individual, the one who builds extraordinary wealth and extraordinary peace, learns to write their own inner narrative, to choose their dominant thoughts, to discipline their emotions, and to align their imagination with their highest aim. This is why Hill emphasized autosuggestion, the repetition of ideas into the subconscious, and why the Stoics emphasized daily reflection, because both were methods of reprogramming the mind, of taking the raw material of thought and shaping it into something strong, focused, and resilient. And when you do this consistently, your external life cannot help but reorganize around your new inner state. You are not here by accident. You are here because some part of you is tired of living below its capacity, tired of reacting instead of commanding, tired of dreaming instead of building. And the moment you begin to understand that wealth is not something you chase, but something you become, the moment you begin to train your mind with the same seriousness that an athlete trains their body, everything starts to shift, slowly at first, then all at once. Inside you is the same faculty that built empires, wrote philosophies, and transformed history, but it has been buried under years of emotional noise, distraction, and doubt, and the work ahead of you is not to acquire something new, it is to remove what is false, to strip away the habits that weaken you, the beliefs that limit you, and the emotions that cloud you, until what remains is a mind that is clear, disciplined, and aligned with a powerful vision. This is the foundation of all true wealth, not just money in the bank, but strength in the soul, not just comfort in the body, but command over the mind. And as you begin to see this, to feel it, to let it sink into your nervous system, you will realize that the most powerful wealth lesson you have never heard is not a strategy. It is a state of being, a way of moving through the world with unshakable purpose and silent authority. And this is only the beginning of what you are about to awaken. You must understand that desire alone, no matter how fiery, is not enough. The world will punish passion without discipline. It will crush raw ambition if it is untethered from reason, and this is the invisible tragedy of so many would-be achievers. They want wealth as though it is a prize to be grabbed in the physical world, unaware that it is a reflection of the mind's inner order, a direct response to the clarity, faith, and mastery cultivated within. Napoleon Hill observed this in the lives of men who created empires from nothing. Their fortunes were not built from luck, talent, or mere action, but from a relentless alignment of thought, belief, and feeling, a synthesis of inner desire and unwavering confidence that transformed the invisible into the tangible. And the Stoics, from the ruins of Imperium, knew the same truth in a quieter, more disciplined language. The man who masters his impressions, who does not bend to fortune's whims, who cultivates the inner citadel of calm, not be shaken by circumstance. One speaks in terms of faith, the other in terms of reason. Together, they speak of the law that governs reality itself. The battlefield of wealth is never outside you. It is always internal. Every delay you blame, every loss you lament, every opportunity you imagine slipping through your fingers is the mirror of a mind not fully disciplined, not fully aligned with its own purpose. The Stoics call this lack of inner sovereignty. Napoleon Hill calls it a failure of definiteness of purpose. Both are true. Both reveal the same truth until the mind is trained to act in accordance with higher reasoning and clear vision. The world will seem random, cruel, and unfair. And yet once the mind is trained, Once the nervous system learns to respond to challenge with calm and opportunity with relentless focus, the world begins to bend, not because of luck, not because of leverage, but because reality is always responding to a mind that is steady, deliberate, and visionary. There is a magnetism here, a silent law of cause and effect, invisible to the untrained eye, but unmistakable to the one who has felt it. The law of wealth, power, and inner freedom, inseparable and eternal. Consider for a moment how much of your life has been spent reacting instead of creating. How much energy dissipates in worry over opinions, over events, over outcomes that are never fully under your control. Every moment of fear, hesitation, and doubt is a brick in the wall that separates you from the life you imagine. Napoleon Hill teaches that faith is the cornerstone of all achievement, but faith without control becomes desperation. Belief without composure becomes obsession. Stoics teach control over emotion, but emotion without belief becomes apathy. Calm without ambition becomes stagnation. Only when these forces are fused, fervent desire guided by reason, burning ambition tempered by emotional calm, does the alchemy of extraordinary success occur. It is the balance of fire and ice, of courage and stillness, of reaching and resting that distinguishes the rare mind from the ordinary. Every thought you nurture is a seed, and every feeling you cultivate is water to that seed. Neglect your thoughts, and fear and doubt will grow like weeds, choking the vision you wish to realize. Feed your emotions with chaos, and the seed will twist into something unrecognizable, something weak and crooked, a life that never fulfills its potential. But feed it with faith, discipline, and serenity, and the seed grows into something towering, resilient, inevitable. The men and women who have amassed wealth beyond measure do not merely think, they orchestrate their inner lives with almost surgical precision. They do not simply desire, they command the elements of their mind to obey, knowing that each small thought, each subtle impression ripples outward until the world itself seems to bend toward the outcome imagined, felt, and disciplined in the inner realm. Persistence, Hill tells us, is not merely endurance, it is the application of will with clarity, the maintenance of focus in the face of repeated challenge. But persistence alone, if ruled by ego, is brittle. Anger at circumstance, impatience with delay, frustration at rejection, these are the seeds of collapse. The Stoics understood this centuries ago. They taught that one must observe adversity without surin. During composure, that the universe will throw obstacles endlessly, and the measure of a person is the degree to which they remain sovereign over their own mind, refusing to be manipulated by fortune, desire, or fear. Wealth, power, success, they do not exist outside the mind. They are the result of internal mastery expressed outward. To persist without control is to crash repeatedly against the same walls. To persist with calm, focus, and clarity is to shape reality into your design. Visualize the mind of such a person, the one who has merged these principles seamlessly. They awaken before the world stirs, holding their vision like a sacred artifact. They think with purpose, feeling with equilibrium. The challenges of the day do not disorient them. They are data, obstacles to maneuver, opportunities to test their mental faculties. Every action is deliberate, every thought intentional. They operate as if the world is a reflection of their inner state, because in truth it is. And the magic, or the law here, is invisible to the untrained observer. The universe is not punishing or rewarding arbitrarily. It is reflecting the clarity, intensity, and calm of the inner mind. When your internal world is ordered, the external world becomes fertile. Now consider desire, the fire that drives human ambition. Desire, when unbridled, consumes without creating. It ignites but does not guide, it burns but does not illuminate. This is why so many chase money like shadows in a hall of mirrors, thinking the object itself is the source of life, meaning, or peace. Napoleon Hill recognized that desire must become a definite purpose, a vision so clear that it saturates the subconscious, that the end cannot escape it, that the body and soul unconsciously align with it in every decision, every instinct, every action. But clarity of vision alone is not sufficient. The Stoics remind us that the mind must remain unmoved by external turbulence, for without emotional discipline, even the clearest vision is vulnerable to collapse. The fusion of these truths creates the ultimate state, an inner fire that burns with undiminished intensity, yet is contained, focused, and strategically applied, a fire that transforms thought into action and action into wealth. The path of mastery is also the path of solitude. You must learn to sit with your thoughts without distraction, to observe your fears without surrender, to measure your impulses against reason and your desires against reality. The Stoics called this the inner citadel, the place where no external force may intrude, the domain of reason and judgment, the command center of the soul. Napoleon Hill would call this the subconscious workshop, where desires are imprinted, where belief is cemented, and where the unseen patterns of thought shape the physical outcomes of life. To neglect this inner cultivation is to leave the greatest lever of all unclaimed. To embrace it is to access power unseen, wealth inevitable, and peace unshakable. Observe the paradox. You must desire intensely, yet be emotionally detached. You must act decisively, yet accept outcomes without surrendering composure. You must build relentlessly, yet remain calm in the presence of loss. This is not weakness, it is strength multiplied. This is not resignation, it is command refined. This is the psychological architecture of success. The masses cannot grasp it, because they have never been taught to reconcile passion with reason, to fuse burning ambition with stoic calm, to accept hardship without complaint, and pursue opportunity without distraction. But you can, and when you do, life begins to bend in ways that seem miraculous, because the world responds to a mind that is both intensely alive and immovably serene. Let us speak of belief, that quiet, invisible force. Napoleon Hill described faith as the elixir of creation, the invisible energy that moves the mind toward its object. But belief without discipline is fragile. It falters at the first storm. The Stoics knew this, insisting that the mind be trained to remain unmoved, that impressions be judged, that reason guide the heart, that virtue, not desire, be the ultimate measure. And when faith is fused with discipline, when belief is married to reason, it becomes unstoppable. The subconscious mind receives it as certainty, the nervous system organizes around it as inevitability, and the world begins to manifest in accordance with that inner decree. The mind has become a magnet, the inner will aligned with the cosmic law, drawing circumstances, people, and resources into conformity with the vision held within. Consider also the role of adversity, which is both teacher and filter. The Stoics embrace suffering as the refinement of character, understanding that only pressure reveals the strength of the interior citadel. Napoleon Hill examined failure and misfortune, noting that those who persist with calm faith turn every obstacle into a stepping stone. Wealth is never a straight path, it is a crucible. Only those who have trained the mind to respond, not react, to endure without fear, to calculate without hesitation, and to imagine without despair will navigate it successfully. Every loss, every insult, every closed door is not punishment, it is feedback, a test of alignment, a measure of psychological readiness. Respond poorly, an opportunity vanishes. Respond well, and doors open that were invisible to the untrained eye. You are standing at the threshold of understanding a truth that most will never know. The outer world is a mirror, and the inner world is the architect. Wealth, influence, and success are not bestowed. They are drawn through precise mental states, cultivated habits, and disciplined action. To those who master the inner game, fortune appears effortless, as though the universe itself conspires to obey. To those who remain ruled by fear, chaos, and reactive emotion, life is a series of misfortunes, disappointments, and fleeting victories. The distinction is always internal. It has nothing to do with intelligence, opportunity, or luck. It has everything to do with the state of your mind, the clarity of your purpose, the control of your emotions, and the depth of your persistence. You have now glimpsed the architecture of wealth hidden behind centuries of philosophy and study, a blueprint older than any market, older than any empire, older than any currency. It is a law of the mind, a law of the soul, and it has never changed. Desire aligned with reason, persistence guided by calm, vision infused with belief, and emotion disciplined by intellect. These are the pillars of unshakable power. Begin to cultivate them, and you are no longer at the mercy of circumstance. You are now the sculptor of your own life, the commander of your own destiny, the architect of outcomes that previously seemed impossible. The mind that is trained to operate in this manner experiences a profound transformation. Fear diminishes, clarity sharpens, decisions become precise, and energy flows toward creation instead of distraction. You stop chasing, you start magnetizing, you stop hoping, you start commanding. The psychological transformation precedes the material one because reality cannot help but reflect the mind that has been disciplined, refined, and aligned. And this is the wealth that cannot be taxed, the success that cannot be stolen, the power that cannot be challenged, the unshakable sovereignty of a mind trained in the fusion of Stoic law and Napoleon Hill's principles. Have you ever paused long enough to consider that every reality you perceive is nothing more than the echo of your own mental landscape, shaped by invisible currents of thought, belief, and emotion, currents that most people allow to flow unchecked, drowning them in indecision, fear, and mediocrity, while the rare individual learns to navigate, redirect, and harness them with deliberate force? Imagine a mind as a forge, every thought a hammer, every feeling a molten strike shaping the destiny that will emerge from the crucible of experience, a mind so disciplined that it bends the chaotic elements of life into order, into opportunity, into wealth. This is the essence of mental mastery, the fusion of Napoleon Hill's understanding of the subconscious with the Stoic insistence on inner sovereignty. The untrained mind reacts, it panics, it wavers. The trained mind observes, it controls, it converts adversity into leverage. Every morning before the world has imposed its noise, the master cultivates his mind as a gardener cultivates rare plants, meticulously selecting which seeds of thought will take root and which weeds of doubt and fear will be uprooted. Napoleon Hill would call this autosuggestion, the repeated planting of specific desires into the subconscious until they are no longer wishful thinking, but inevitable belief. The Stoics would call this vigilant self-examination, the constant monitoring of impressions, the deliberate choice of which internal narratives to nourish and which to extinguish. Both philosophies converge here. The mind is not an idle observer of fate, it is the architect of destiny, and the quality of your internal architecture determines the quality of your external life. Visualization is the secret alchemy that bridges thought and reality. To see wealth, influence, and freedom vividly in the mind is not indulgence in fantasy. It is programming the subconscious to recognize and align with the patterns that will produce it. Napoleon Hill emphasized this repeatedly. Your subconscious mind cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined reality and present fact, and it acts upon both with equal devotion. The Stoics understood this in a different language. The impressions we allow ourselves to dwell on shape our judgments, our actions, and our character. To visualize is to mold the raw clay of consciousness. To discipline that visualization is to ensure that every impulse, every decision, every motion of the body aligns with the vision held within, silently, invisibly, inevitably. Consider the subtle power of belief. A mind that doubts is a mind that hesitates. A mind that hesitates is a mind that lost. As faith, in Hill's terms, is more than hope. It is certainty, the unwavering conviction that what you imagine and feel internally will manifest externally, provided you act with persistence and clarity. Faith untempered by emotional mastery becomes recklessness. Belief without composure becomes obsession. The Stoic mind tempers this fire with reason, ensuring that desire does not mutate into panic or impatience. Together, they create a mental state both ferocious and serene, a state that silently commands the universe. This is the hidden wealth lesson few ever understand. To build wealth, first build the mind that wealth cannot resist. Persistence, the act of refusing to yield despite repeated obstacles, is the crucible of manifestation. But most people misunderstand persistence. They equate it with stubbornness, blind repetition, or fruitless endurance. True persistence is the marriage of focus and adaptability, of relentless aim and calm judgment. The Stoic warrior endures without complaint. The Hillian visionary continues without despair. When the mind is disciplined, every failure becomes information, every setback a guidepost, every rejection a refinement. Those who persist with unshakable internal alignment move through barriers as though they were illusions, because reality always yields to the one whose inner faculties are honed, unwavering, and directed with conscious intent. Now let us examine desire, the raw energy that ignites all action. Desire is not mere want. It is a burning, consuming fire that fuels vision. But left unchecked, desire is chaos. Hill teaches definiteness of purpose, to fix desire on a single vivid goal so that the subconscious has no ambiguity, so that every action aligns with the chosen objective. Stoicism teaches temperance, the mastery of passion, so that desire serves reason rather than destroying it. Together, they create a force of immense precision, a fire contained, focused, and directed toward the creation of a reality previously thought impossible. The mind in this state does not flounder. It magnetizes. Opportunities, ideas, connections, and resources converge, not through chance, but through the invisible law of alignment between thought, emotion, and action. But no wealth emerges without the discipline of detachment. Emotional detachment does not mean apathy. It means observing outcomes without being hijacked by them, embracing process over attachment, and cultivating a serene inner state regardless of external conditions. The Stoics called this freedom from slavery to impressions. Napoleon Hill called it faith in the unseen, confidence in the invisible law that transforms thought into reality. Detachment allows the mind to act decisively without being paralyzed by fear or overjoyed by minor victories. It is the calm within the storm, the pivot point around which the whirlwind of life rotates without toppling the inner self. This detachment is the secret to resilience, to clarity, and ultimately to unstoppable wealth creation. The imagination, when disciplined, is the most powerful instrument of creation. Hill insisted on a vivid, controlled imagination. It is the stage on which your desires are first enacted. The Stoics remind us that imagination is also a battlefield where impressions can be tested, evaluated, and refined before they spill into action. To imagine without control is to be enslaved by illusion. To control imagination without vision is to be paralyzed by fear. The synthesis is vision tempered by reason, desire sharpened by calm, creativity guided by discipline. In this state, the mind begins to create reality in advance, arranging circumstances, influencing people, and anticipating obstacles so that action flows naturally, effortlessly, and powerfully from preparation already completed in the unseen domain of thought. The inner conversation is equally crucial. Most people allow the mind to chatter with doubt, fear, and limitation, unconsciously reinforcing scarcity. Every self-limiting thought becomes a brick in the invisible wall that separates you from your potential. Hill instructs constant repetition of affirmations, controlled suggestions planted into the subconscious. The Stoics demand vigilance over impressions, ensuring that judgment is informed, not hijacked by impulse. Together, these practices cultivate a mental environment where the dominant voice is faith, clarity, and calm resolve. When your inner narrative is aligned with your goals, external reality responds. The world is a mirror, the mind is the lens. Focus it, refine it, control it, and the reflection becomes inevitable. Time itself is a weapon in this internal war. Napoleon Hill teaches that the accumulation of focused, persistent action compounds invisibly over time, silently producing results that surprise the untrained observer. The Stoics understood that patience is not passive waiting. but disciplined endurance, the ability to act consistently while remaining unmoved by delay or obstruction. A mind aligned in this way uses every moment as a tool. Every setback is every waiting period is preparation. Every challenge is an opportunity to refine thought and action. Wealth and success do not require speed. They require precision, persistence, and the patience to let internal law manifest externally. Emotions are the invisible architects of action. Fear corrodes. Impatience misdirects. Frustration stalls. Hill instructs the mind to saturate itself with faith and desire. The Stoics instruct the mind to saturate itself with reason and composure. When these forces merge, the emotions that once sabotaged become allies. Anger transforms into decisive energy. Anxiety becomes foresight. Desire becomes focused initiative. Hope becomes strategic expectation. This is the invisible calculus of mastery. Every feeling is measured, every impulse considered, every reaction trained. The mind becomes both a flame and a fortress, burning with intention yet unbreached by chaos. Every day the disciplined mind rehearses, visualizes, affirms, and reflects. Autosuggestion programs the subconscious. Reflection evaluates impressions. Visualization maps desired reality. Reason tempers desire. Persistence guides action. Detachment preserves calm. These practices, repeated endlessly, create a psychological ecosystem where wealth and success are natural byproducts. The mind is no longer reactive, it is creative. The soul is no longer passive, it is sovereign. And the individual moves through life as though guided by invisible hands, capable of extraordinary achievement because the internal machinery is flawless, precise, and aligned with universal law. Now consider the transformative power of focus. The average mind is scattered, reacting to every external stimulus. Every opinion, every fluctuation in circumstance. The master mind, as Hill would say, concentrates relentlessly on a single definite purpose. The Stoic, in parallel, concentrates relentlessly on virtue, reason, and inner calm. The fusion is a mind that acts with the precision of a surgeon and the vision of a prophet. It ignores triviality, avoids distraction, and channels every resource toward the realization of its vision. To observe such a mind in action is to witness inevitability. Fortune bending, opportunities converging, results manifesting in apparent synchronicity, though the hidden mechanism is internal mastery cultivated over time. This is the stage where most fail to see the invisible law. Manifestation is not magic. It is mathematics of the mind. Thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and actions are variables. Discipline, persistence, and clarity are constants. When aligned, they produce predictable outcomes. The masses perceive luck. The master knows causation. Hill observed that no fortune was built without a clear plan executed with relentless persistence. The Stoics observed that no soul was free without mastery over impressions, desires, and passions. Together, they reveal the formula of invincibility. Internal mastery plus external action equals inevitable manifestation. The law is silent, impartial, and absolute. Your inner state is the seed, your actions the watering, your persistence the sun. What you plant grows, what you neglect dies. There are no exceptions. Chaos, distraction, fear, and impulsiveness will yield poverty, loss, and mediocrity. Discipline, clarity, faith, and focused action will yield wealth, power, and sovereignty. Napoleon Hill codified it, the Stoics demonstrated it. The proof is in every life where the mind has been trained and the inner laws obeyed. The lesson is hidden in plain sight. Mastery of self is mastery of all. Have you ever felt the simultaneous pull of longing and fear? The inner tug of war between what you desire and what you dread? The silent battle raging beneath the surface of every choice you make, invisible to the world but decisive in the outcome of your life? This is where the most powerful wealth lesson hides. Not in balance sheets or stock tickers, not in negotiation skills or networking contacts, but in the mastery of the psychological battlefield within, where desire claws at reason and emotion fights logic, where ambition demands action and patience whispers restraint. Most people live as if this battle does not exist. They are dragged by impulses, tossed by circumstance, their fate written in the tides of reaction rather than the deliberate command of intention. But the rare individual, the master of self, understands that victory here in the invisible theater of the mind determines victory everywhere else. Desire is a double-edged sword. Untamed, it becomes obsession, desperation, an inferno that blinds and burns. The Stoics warned that unchecked passion enslaves the soul. Napoleon Hill warned that indecisive desire wastes energy and confuses the subconscious. Yet desire, when disciplined, becomes the force that fuels clarity, the energy that sustains persistence, the magnet that draws opportunity. Discipline does not diminish desire, it channels it. Detachment does not extinguish it, it tempers it. The fusion of these forces, the fiery drive of ambition held within the calm fortress of reason, creates a psychological power that bends circumstances, commands attention, and attracts wealth in ways the untrained mind cannot perceive. This is the unseen architecture of success, the hidden machinery of influence, the engine behind every fortune quietly amassed and every empire silently built. Emotional detachment is the foundation of this mastery. Detachment is often misunderstood as coldness, apathy, or indifference, but it is none of these. It is the conscious decision to observe reality without surrendering to its emotional turbulence, to act with precision while remaining unshaken by chaos, to feel without being hijacked by desire or fear. The Stoics called this freedom from slavery to impressions. Napoleon Hill called it faith in unseen forces, confidence in the alignment of mind and universe. The person who cultivates detachment is not passive, they are strategically active. They do not react to every insult, every setback, every opportunity. They move deliberately, conserving energy, focusing attention, and letting life unfold in response to their disciplined inner command. This is the hidden mastery that multiplies wealth and influence without effort appearing on the surface. Control of emotion is also the control of power. The moment you allow anger, fear, envy, or impatience to dominate your decisions, you relinquish sovereignty over your life. You respond to circumstance instead of commanding it. Hill understood this principle in the context of persistence. A mind overcome by discouragement cannot act with the relentless, calibrated focus required for extraordinary achievement. The Stoics understood it as a moral and psychological imperative. Impressions shape judgment, judgment shapes action, action shapes destiny. Together, these truths reveal a law invisible to the casual observer. Your internal state dictates every external outcome. Master the storm within, and the world outside will submit. Fail to master it, and the universe appears hostile, capricious, and unyielding. Now consider inner strength. Not mere physical endurance, not superficial toughness, but a resilient, self-contained fortitude that allows you to confront difficulty without fear, loss without despair, and delay without frustration. The Stoics called this virtue, Hill called it definiteness of purpose combined with faith. Both describe the same psychological phenomenon, the ability to hold a vision of the future in the mind so clearly, and a commitment to action so steadfast that no temporary discomfort can sway it. Inner strength is not built by comfort. It is forged in adversity. It is cultivated through repeated exercises of will, reflection, visualization, and disciplined thought. The stronger the mind, the more inevitable the outcomes. Every decision, every step, every interaction flows from this inner citadel, impervious to distraction, influence, and chaos, desire and control, fire and calm, ambition and reason. These are not opposites to be balanced, but forces to be fused. Most people believe that they must suppress desire to achieve peace or sacrifice calm to pursue ambition. This is a false dichotomy. True mastery is the ability to hold both simultaneously, to burn with purpose while remaining unshakable, to act decisively without attachment, to pursue wealth without being consumed by it. Imagine the psychological tension of a mind that feels the intensity of desire but experiences the serenity of detachment, a mind that moves like a predator, silent and precise, yet burns with relentless inner fire. This is the cinematic reality of the master, the inner drama that determines fortunes, relationships, and destiny. The world is unaware of the theater within, but it bends nonetheless to those who have rehearsed their minds for the role of command. Persistence in this context is a silent, almost invisible force. It is the continuation of action without drama, the maintenance of faith without spectacle, the refusal to yield to temporary disappointment or social opinion. Hill's analysis of the wealthy revealed that persistence is often the differentiator between fleeting success and enduring legacy. The Stoics revealed that the person who endures without attachment to reward demonstrates power over circumstance itself. To combine these principles is to act with unstoppable momentum, guided by an inner law rather than external validation, to maintain energy, clarity, and focus even when the world appears indifferent or hostile. This is the psychological mechanism that transforms ordinary action into extraordinary results. The mind must also be trained to recognize opportunity in disguise. Obstacles are not enemies. They are signposts. Every loss, every rejection, every temporary failure contains information, teaching, and direction. The Stoics called this amor fati, the love of fate, the acceptance and integration of all events as necessary elements in the unfolding of mastery. Hill would call it accurate analysis of adversity, using every experience as data to refine purpose and strategy. Together, they reveal a truth few grasp. The circumstances themselves are secondary. It is your interpretation, response, and mental alignment that create the outcome. A disciplined mind sees beyond the surface, detects patterns invisible to others, and converts challenges into leverage, scarcity into abundance, limitation into opportunity. Desire without patience collapses, vision without discipline falters, action without reflection backfires. Every great achiever knows this intimately. They burn with ambition but meditate with restraint. They pursue relentlessly but measure meticulously. They act courageously but calculate shrewdly. They cultivate mental states that generate momentum even in the absence of visible progress. And they understand that the true test of mastery is not in comfort, reward, or applause, but in maintaining equilibrium when everything around them is unstable, unpredictable, and threatening. The inner calm becomes a superpower. The fire becomes a tool, the combination invincible. Emotional detachment does not mean disengagement from life. It means sovereignty over life. It means seeing the world as it is, responding with clarity, acting with decisiveness, and not surrendering to the emotional volatility of circumstance. Hill's teaching of autosuggestion ensures that the mind is saturated with clarity, faith, and purpose. Stoicism ensures that it is insulated against chaos, distraction, and fear. Together, they create a psychological ecosystem optimized for creation, manifestation, and wealth. Every thought, feeling, and action is no longer random or reactive. It is intentional, calibrated, and aligned with the chosen objective. This is the state where extraordinary wealth and power emerge naturally because the internal conditions demand them. Consider, too, the role of imagination under disciplined control. Hill emphasized imagination as the workshop of the mind, where visions are crafted, plans are formed, and creative strategies are generated. The Stoics insisted that the imagination must be guided by reason, that scenarios must be evaluated with judgment, that no impulse should dictate action without scrutiny. The combination produces a mind capable of envisioning a desired reality, testing it mentally, preparing for contingencies, and acting decisively when opportunity arises. Visualization then becomes not wishful thinking, but strategic rehearsal, the invisible rehearsal of mastery that ensures readiness in the physical world. Finally, recognize the profound subtlety of inner alignment. Every thought, belief, emotion, and habit must converge toward the desired outcome. Disalignment breeds hesitation, inconsistency, and misfortune. Alignment produces inevitability. Hill's analysis of subconscious programming, Stoic practices of reflection, and the law of cause and effect converge here. A mind aligned internally manifests success externally. The invisible mechanisms of wealth, influence, and personal power respond not to effort alone, but to the ordered architecture of consciousness, the fusion of desire with control, action with reflection, ambition with calm. To understand this is to step into a domain that few even know exists, the secret theater where empires are quietly built, fortunes silently drawn, and the soul forged into unshakable sovereignty. Faith is not passive. Faith is not hope. Faith is an active, endless, unwavering commitment to the unseen. Napoleon Hill called it the elixir that converts desire into reality, the invisible force that organizes every thought, feeling, and action around the fulfillment of a definite purpose. The Stoics called this the mastery of judgment, the conscious acceptance that what is under your control, your mind, your will, your actions, must guide your response to what is not. Together they describe a law older than empires, more powerful than circumstance, the mind that believes without wavering, that acts without hesitation, that endures without complaint, shapes reality itself. This is not philosophy, it is psychology. This is not theory, it is the architecture of all success, and it is available to anyone willing to submit their inner world to the laws that govern outcome, unseen yet inexorably present. Imagine a mind where every thought resonates with purpose, where belief saturates the subconscious until it no longer questions, doubts, or hesitates, where faith is not a temporary spark, but a constant, unyielding furnace that warms every action, every decision, every encounter. The masses, distracted by fear, indecision, and emotion, stumble from moment to moment at the mercy of circumstance. The master, Hillian in method, Stoic in discipline, walks through the same world untouched by chaos, seeing opportunity where others see risk, persisting where others despair, and commanding outcomes where others beg for fortune. This is the hidden law of wealth. Alignment between desire, belief, and disciplined action is the invisible magnet that draws opportunity, influence, and resources into coherence with the inner vision. Belief, however, must be married to disciplined action. There is no manifestation without execution. A mind saturated with faith but devoid of effort is like a river trapped behind a dam. Potential energy, stagnation, frustration. Napoleon Hill emphasized that every plan must be executed with persistence. The Stoics emphasized that every act must be guided by reason and integrity. The combination produces action that is inevitable in its effectiveness, precise in its timing, and impossible to deter. This is the psychology of the unshakable, the behavior of those who accumulate wealth, influence, and power in ways that appear effortless to observers, yet are rooted in unseen mastery, rehearsal, and deliberate alignment. Now consider the unseen laws themselves. They are subtle yet absolute. Thoughts are seeds, emotions are water, action is sunlight, faith is the soil. The alignment of these elements produces life, growth, and manifestation. Misalign them, and the seed withers. Align them, and the seed flourishes beyond expectation. This is the invisible algebra of success. The internal state dictates external results, not partially, not occasionally, but consistently. Wealth is a reflection, not a goal. Power is a mirror, not a prize. The subconscious mind obeys the laws of thought as rigorously as gravity obeys mass. And the disciplined mind, trained in the fusion of Hill's methods and Stoic law, becomes a natural conductor of these forces, a master orchestrator of invisible currents that others call luck, opportunity, or genius. Faith also requires patience, the kind of patience that does not surrender to hope or despair but maintains equilibrium while action is executed and results are deferred. The Stoics practice this daily, enduring delay without agitation, embracing obstacles without resentment, and maintaining focus on the inner law that governs outcome. Hill described it as the relentless expectation that what has been mentally created will materialize, provided the work continues. Patience is the bridge between intention and manifestation, between desire and fulfillment. To cultivate it is to walk in silence while the world shouts, to act decisively while the majority hesitates, to persist without recognition, trusting that the law unseen responds to consistency and alignment. The human mind fears delay, uncertainty, and invisibility. This fear is the enemy of wealth because it forces reaction, distraction, and compromise. The master mind, Hillian in imagination, Stoic in discipline, understands that timing is the surface expression of inner alignment. Results are delayed only because the internal machinery is not yet fully tuned. Every thought must be precise, every emotion disciplined, every action deliberate. Every habit, belief, and attitude is a lever moving unseen forces toward inevitable manifestation. To master this is to convert fear into patience, frustration into strategy, doubt into unwavering expectation. The external world bends because the internal law is absolute. Let us now examine the tension between desire and detachment, the cinematic drama of the inner battlefield. Desire drives action. Detachment preserves composure. Desire without detachment becomes desperation. Detachment without desire becomes apathy. The rare individual fuses both, moving with intensity while remaining unmoved, pursuing with fervor while embracing calm, earning with ambition while radiating serenity. Imagine a mind like a storm contained within a fortress, lightning crackling with potential yet perfectly directed, wind raging yet constrained by walls of reason. This is psychological mastery, the state where the world's chaos cannot dictate your focus. The storms of circumstance cannot derail your intent, and every step you take is both deliberate and inevitable. Every challenge now becomes a test of this mastery. The Stoics remind us that obstacles are not punishments but instruments. Adversity is a teacher disguised as trial. Hill observed that every successful person faced repeated failure, ridicule, and resistance, yet persisted with unwavering faith and clarity. The convergence of these teachings shows that the world does not oppose mastery. It merely tests readiness. Those unprepared see only chaos. Those trained in inner alignment see opportunity, refinement, and acceleration. Wealth, influence, and power are not obtained by luck. They are drawn into coherence with a disciplined mind and sovereign inner state. Belief fuels action. Action executes vision. Vision guides persistence. Persistence informs strategy. Strategy ensures alignment. Alignment cultivates internal harmony. Harmony magnetizes opportunity. Opportunity manifests outcome. This chain, invisible to the untrained eye, is absolute in effect. The difference between ordinary lives and extraordinary ones is rarely intelligence or circumstance. It is the orchestration of these internal forces into a coherent, unbreakable system. Hill and the Stoics together describe the same law in complementary languages. One speaks of faith and subconscious programming, the other of judgment and emotional sovereignty. When understood and applied together, the law produces wealth that is inevitable, influence that is natural, and freedom that is absolute. Br. Consider the energy of expectation. The mind that truly believes expects. This expectation is not passive. It radiates, influences perception, and guides action. Opportunities appear because the subconscious recognizes and prioritizes them. Decisions are made with clarity because doubt has been removed. Action is executed with speed and precision because hesitation is eliminated. The Stoics would call this equanimity in the face of fortune. Hill would call it the confident command of the subconscious mind. Together, they create a mind that moves through reality as though it were a pliable material, bending circumstances, attracting resources, and manifesting outcomes with a rhythm that seems preordained, yet is earned through inner mastery. The final element here is integrity of alignment. Desire, faith, imagination, action, persistence, detachment, and emotional discipline must converge. Any weak link fractures the system. Hill repeatedly emphasizes definiteness of purpose. The Stoics repeatedly emphasize self-governance. Both insist that mastery is not accidental, but deliberate, cumulative, and disciplined. The individual who cultivates this alignment does not merely hope for wealth, they create it. They do not chase opportunity, they generate it. They do not react to the world, they orchestrate it. This is the ultimate lesson. External reality is secondary. Internal sovereignty is primary. Master the internal, and the external follows inevitably. And now the tension tightens. You have S In desire, faith, visualization, persistence, patience, detachment, and alignment, you have seen the invisible mechanics that distinguish the ordinary from the extraordinary, the weak from the invincible, the reactive from the sovereign. The final step, the cinematic climax of this inner journey, is to bring all these forces to bear in action, to commit to relentless, disciplined, morally, and psychologically grounded execution. This is where philosophy meets reality. This is where thought becomes deed. This is where the unseen laws of wealth and power, long understood by Hill and the Stoics, begin to manifest tangibly, inevitably, unavoidably. Now, imagine standing at the precipice of your life, not the precipice of despair, but the precipice of transformation. You have glimpsed the hidden laws, felt the tension between desire and detachment, observed the invisible machinery of manifestation, and walked with your mind through the crucible of discipline and alignment. All that remains is the final step, the leap into absolute mastery, the decisive commitment to your own sovereignty. The world will attempt to distract you, to seduce you with comfort, to confuse you with chaos, to intimidate you with doubt. It will demand your attention, your fear, your surrender. But you have seen the truth. Nothing external can determine your destiny unless you allow it. You are the commander, the sculptor, the architect. You are the force through which desire becomes reality. Thought becomes action, and vision becomes legacy. Act now. Act with the intensity of the fire that burns within you and the composure of the fortress that shields you. Every moment you hesitate, every thought you to waver, every doubt you entertain is a moment you cede power to the untrained, to the undisciplined, to the ordinary. Wealth, influence, freedom, and mastery do not wait for the timid. They converge only on the minds that have been prepared, honed, and aligned with unwavering clarity. The Stoics remind you that the obstacle is the path. Napoleon Hill reminds you that the vision is the command. Do not merely dream. Do not merely hope. Do not merely wish. Command. Envision. Act. Persist. Align. Conquer. Your inner fortress must now become the launching pad. Visualize it as a citadel where fear has no entry, doubt is extinguished, and desire is precisely channeled. Within these walls, faith burns without hesitation, imagination constructs with deliberate detail, and persistence drives every action toward inevitable manifestation. The external world cannot breach this fortress because it was built from the unshakable pillars of mental mastery, desire disciplined by reason, action guided by insight, patience tempered by intensity, and belief reinforced by repeated affirmation. Step into this fortress every morning, and it will become the invisible engine that moves mountains, bends circumstances, and commands fortune itself. Embrace detachment not as apathy, but as sovereignty. Let every outcome be observed without surrender, every success received without intoxication, every failure met without despair. The world tests all who walk this path, and only those who act without attachment will pass. Your emotional discipline is your shield. Your clarity of purpose is your sword. With these, you do not merely survive adversity. You convert it into leverage, into insight, into momentum. The universe responds not to panic, not to frenzy, not to wishful thinking, but to composure fused with relentless intention. Be that force. Move as if the world itself conspires to obey, because the law of aligned mind is invisible, inevitable, and uncompromising. Persist relentlessly. Let no setback shake your alignment. Let no opinion, insult, or obstacle deter your path. Each challenge is not a punishment, but a measure, a test of your readiness, an opportunity to refine strategy, fortify discipline, and deepen conviction. Napoleon Hill's successful men did not quit at failure. The Stoics did not crumble in adversity. They persisted quietly, steadily, internally sovereign, externally decisive, until the invisible law manifested in concrete reality. You are now called to that same level of relentless commitment, to persist when no one is watching, to act when the world doubts, to maintain faith when doubt appears inevitable, and to align all thoughts, emotions, and actions toward the singular objective you have declared to your mind. Command your mind. Let it burn with purpose and yet remain immovable. Let it envision relentlessly while remaining calm under pressure. Let it believe without hesitation and act without fear. Every decision, every impulse, every moment is an instrument in the creation of wealth, influence, and freedom. The power is already within you. It always has been. It is not external. It is the sovereign alignment of desire, belief, imagination, persistence, detachment, and emotional mastery. Nothing outside can give it to you. Nothing outside can take it away. You either claim it, or you allow life to drift by at the mercy of circumstance and the wills of others. And now the final truth: you are the magnet, the architect, the commander. The invisible forces you have learned to cultivate, faith, desire, visualization, persistence, emotional discipline, are converging. The path is clear. The mechanism is invisible yet precise. The law is absolute. What you imagine, what you believe, what you persistently act upon will manifest. Fortune, opportunity, wealth, and mastery are waiting, aligned perfectly with the mind that refuses compromise. Step fully into that mind. Commit absolutely to that vision. Move with relentless, disciplined action.